Welcome everybody. This month we've got our April meetup. We've been so excited for this one because we have a very special speaker with us today. This month we have Ali Spittel joining us from AWS, and she's going to be speaking about AWS Amplify. But for those of you who kind of aren't aware of any tech and kind of who we are a tech agnostic meetup group in the northeast of England, in the UK. Generally, what we try to do is create a safe space for members of the tech community to talk about techie subjects, and it literally can be about any tech. Get the joke? Never mind. Who are we? My name's Chris. I'm one of the organizers here. We also have James, Mark, and Martha, who also help to organize this event and kind of sort out any tech. Unfortunately, Mark isn't able to be here today. He had to be pulled away for something, so he does apologize. Yeah, so if you kind of wanted to get in touch with us, we're kind of all over social media. But the easiest way is if you just go to the website, any.technology, and on there's a contact us page there, which has all of those social media handles, as well as the link to get to our Discord page. If you wanted to speak at any tech, or if you knew anybody who you wanted to see or might be interested as well, please do get in touch. And yeah, we can obviously chase that up. Equally, if you had any feedback for ourselves or for Ali, then yeah, please do just get in touch. Thank you very much to our sponsor. So we're sponsored by ScottLogic. Without those guys, yeah, we wouldn't really have a meetup. Usually, we used to do these meetups as physical meetups. We kind of have beer and pizza and things. But unfortunately, I'm sure you're all fully aware of the way that the world is at the moment, and we can't do that. And as I said, we have Ali Spittel here today. If you want to kind of get in touch with it, there's a couple of kind of social media handles there. But yeah, she's going to be speaking to us about how we can build backend systems using AWS Amplify. So I guess without further ado, I will hand it over to yourself, Ali. Feel free to just take the screen away, and yeah, the stage is yours.
Amazing. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen then. Yes, I will kick you off. Sorry. Okay, how does this look? And if I go into presenter mode, cool, awesome. So I'm going to be talking about the product that I work on all day, every day, which is AWS Amplify, and the admin UI, which we launched at reInvent this year, which is in November. It is the thing that I am like most excited about, and I love talking about this. So I'm going to show you how to build a backend in clicks with this tool. So if you have questions throughout, we're at a size where you could just like come off mute and ask me that question. We can also kind of play around with this a little bit. And if you have features that you want me to try to add or something like that, then let me know, because with this size, we can really do a lot. Awesome. So who am I? I'm Ali Spittel. I am a senior developer advocate, and I actually manage the Amplify developer advocacy team. So I get to work on this. If you have any feedback on the product, like let me know. I will bubble that up to the product team and try to get any bugs or features or whatever implemented, or even like documentation changes. Let me know. This is what I do as my job. I'm A Spittel pretty much across social media. And our goals for today are to build a fun application, to discuss the underlying AWS services that we are using, and learn a little bit about AWS Amplify. So the steps we're going to take is we're first going to create our data. So we're going to create a data schema behind the scenes, there'll be a database to store that data, and then we're going to test that data out locally. You don't need an AWS account for this stuff, which is really nice. Like, you don't have to worry about charges or anything like that. You can just test it out, and then you can deploy, and then we'll use the admin UI to manage our data. We might even have time to add authentication in as well. Depends on how my live coding goes, how many bugs I get. Hopefully it goes smoothly, and then we can add lots of cool things. So,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I don't think we can see the slideshow on your screen that you're presenting.
Oh, weird. Okay. I don't know what to do then. Let me try to reshare. Zoom, this UI, not great. Okay, sorry about that. I'll go back to the last slide then. This is what I was showing and talking. Sorry about that.
That's good.
So we're going to create the data, test it out locally, deploy it, and then manage our data. So what is Amplify? So Amplify is a set of AWS tools for front-end and mobile developers specifically. So it's, I think normally people think of AWS as this set of backend services, and instead this is specifically for the front-end developers. It's actually a wrapper on top of a lot of other services. So behind the scenes, you're using tools like S3, if you've heard of that, or Dynamodb, or AWS Appsync for GraphQL. You don't need to know any of these services by any means to use Amplify, but behind the scenes, that's what you are using. So I think that full stack web development is really evolving, and this has even been within my own career. So originally the web was static. It was just a bunch of HTML pages. And then from there, you got PHP and Cold Fusion in order to add some dynamic data to a page. And then we got frameworks for easier dev. And this was a lot of my early career of working with Ruby on Rails and Django in order to build these applications. And something that they do really well is code generation. And so you can run something like Rails G, whatever, and create an application, and you tweak it to what you need it to be. But a lot of the code is pre-written for you. And I think that's true of a lot of services that are really popular now, is that they write a lot of this code up front for you. Like if I'm starting a blog, for example, I'm not going to start from zero. I'm going to use like a Next.js starter or a Gatsby starter or something along those lines. And then another piece of the puzzle that I'm really excited about is serverless. And so serverless allows for easier deployment and infrastructure management. So instead of having to work really hard at configuring a server and dealing with all of the load balancing and all that, like Lambda or a serverless framework will help to make that process a little bit easier. So full stack web development, I think, is moving in the right direction and getting easier and easier over time. And so the next progression that I am really excited about is low code. And I think this is a term that totally freaks developers out, because it's like, am I going to lose my job? Are we not going to be writing much code anymore? And my answer to that is that these progressions that we just saw have made it so that there are more developers and more people can be developers. Like behind the scenes, low code is code. And so it's still going to be programmers writing this. But my hope is that a lot of the boring stuff goes away, the stuff that we write over and over and over again as developers, and code generation becomes an even bigger part of our development workflows. So the less code, I think, the better in a lot of ways, because code needs maintenance and can lead to bugs. But there are certain pieces of code that are so important. And so the no code idea of creating everything in an Excel sheet, or using a website builder like Wix or Squarespace or something along those lines, they're not fully extensible. They're not fully customizable. And if you're a developer, the developer experience isn't really there. And so all of those things are still really important and things that we should prioritize. But I think we should make developer jobs easier and easier, and make it so that more people can be developers. And so the tool that I'm going to show you today that we're going to build an app with is the Amplify Admin UI. And this is a low code framework that is made specifically for developers. So it's for a developer audience and geared towards people like us. So I am going to switch which screen I'm sharing. This is fun. I'm just going to share my whole desktop. So let's get Chrome tab up. So closing out all my tabs. There's a lot open. Okay. So I'm going to go to sandbox.amplifyapp.com and I'm going to choose create an app backend here. I'm going to choose to pick up to set up data first and then start with a blank schema. I normally do a blog app for this, but anybody have any like fun app ideas that they want to see live? I can say if it's going to be doable or not. So. Okay, then I'll do a blog then. Feel unoriginal. So a blog would probably have a title for it and then also a description. So I'm going to make the title required because normally you'd want to at least have a title. You'd probably want the full post as well. Maybe description isn't good. Post or like content. That's a good one. You can add more fields and you can also switch through different data types, including custom types. So if you wanted to have a timestamp or something like that, you could, and that'd probably be a good thing to add for a blog. Then we'll also add comments. So a blog would have comments associated with it. I'm actually going to call this post. Okay. So the post is going, or the comment is also going to have content, and then it'll also have an author, and I'll add an author to post as well. Then we can add a relationship between these different models. So I can say comment, and so one post would have many comments. So if you wanted to have a data relationship where it's like one post to one comment, you can do that as well. So that would be more for something like each post would have one user associated with it or something along those lines. And you can also do many to many. So like likes would be a many to many relationship because a post would have many likes. So that is my data model. Does anybody have any questions before I continue? Cool. And I can go to test in your app. And then I'll start a new React app. So okay. Okay, so I'm going to do create React app, any type of blog. It doesn't need to be a React app. It could be whatever type of app. I tend to do React apps just because that's kind of like what I do mostly. But also on top of that, if you do something like vanilla JavaScript, you'd have to set up the bundler yourself, and that can be a little bit tedious. Or you also need to have a TypeScript support enabled too, because the models are going to be TypeScript. And so having the TypeScript transpiler can be a little bit of work too. So normally use Create React App. Like one of the best tools I think in my development career has been Create React App. So nice. Although recently I've been using Next more often for things. Anybody like Next?
I'd like to try using it. I've used the Create React app a lot, but Next is on my my list to use. I just don't have a good enough excuse at the moment to try it out.
There are so many reasons why I love it. Like, first off, the performance. And then the other piece of it that's so cool is that with Create React App, you still need to have like React Router or something like that if you want to have multiple views. And Next, it just kind of has that for you, which is super nice. I don't know. It's my go-to now, but it's a little bit more difficult to maneuver in demos. So I still use React. That being said, if you are iOS dev or like an Android dev, you can also use this tool. There's instructions for that. I have never done mobile development in my life though. So that would be fun if I was trying to just write something that I didn't know. So I created a React app. I'm going to change into the directory. I'm already in it. I already changed into it. Okay, then the next thing that you would need to do is install the Amplify command line interface. So Amplify was originally just a command line interface. So you can use it to provision resources. So instead of going through this admin UI, you would do Amplify add API, for example, in order to add data to your app. So that still very much exists. And for most of the AWS services, you will still use Amplify add whatever that service is. And so it's both like forwards and backwards compatible. So if you do something with the command line interface, you can use the admin UI and vice versa. So if you're using the CLI, you can use the admin UI. It also follows this kind of Git-like model of push and pull. So I'm going to run Amplify pull sandbox ID with this ID, and this is going to pull down this backend that I created on the sandbox site to my local development environment. And so if I change something locally, I would run Amplify push to push those changes. Right now, my backend is not deployed. So it is using something called Amplify Data Store, which is an online offline service. It's just using the offline support right now. And the data is actually stored in IndexedDB, which is kind of similar to local storage if you've ever used that before, but it just allows you to hold more information. It's also asynchronous, whereas local storage is synchronous. So I pulled that down. I'm also going to need to install the Amplify libraries and the Amplify TypeScript, or not Amplify TypeScript, just TypeScript. And that is just needed for the models that are created. My Z shell is not happy with me right now. It's okay. I'll fix that at some point. Okay, so when I ran the Amplify pull command, a bunch of code was generated for me. And that's why I was kind of talking about that code generation, where a lot of low code, I think it's really just better code generation, maybe using visual interfaces to generate that code instead of a command line. So when I ran that, it created this backend directory, and inside there is this API subdirectory, and there's the schema.graphql. So when we created that schema, it was actually using that visual interface. It was a GraphQL schema. And so you can see that GraphQL schema populated here. If you want to change anything to this, you can change it and then again, run Amplify push in order to update that data. Then there's also the source directory. So this is where your code lies for a React app that's generated via Create React App. And so inside of there, we also generated this models directory. And this has those same models, but in TypeScript. So we can import these into our code and use them. And it's going to enforce all the things that TypeScript's going to enforce, like your types. So there is that. There's also the AWS Exports.js. Right now, it's just an empty object, but if you actually deployed this backend that we created, it would populate this with your information on how to tie to that cloud provisioned backend. So I like to call this like copy and paste driven development now, where there's code snippets generated right here, and I'm going to integrate those into my app. So I'm going to import Amplify from AWS Amplify, and then the AWS config from the AWS exports file. And then I'm going to run Amplify configure on that AWS config. This should not be in this file though. I am losing it. This should be in my index.js file. So moving that snippet over there. And so what I'm just doing is configuring my application to use the information in that AWS config. I'm throwing a lot of information out there. Again, feel free to pause me at any point if this isn't clear or if you want me to slow down or anything like that. So the next thing that we get to do is we're going to create an actual application to use this, because right now we're not doing anything. So I'm going to go into my app.js and I'm going to pull down all of my posts. I guess I have to create a form to create a post as well. So we can do that. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually deploy this so that I can use the next feature to create my data for me, because creating forms during demos is not super fun. So this, again, you can use all your data locally if you want before deploying it. So you don't need an AWS account or anything like that. You can just play around with it. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. I have an AWS account, thank goodness. And I'm going to deploy this. And you need to choose a region to deploy this into. You know what? I'm going to use Europe. I always run out of my app limit in US East because that's where I am. And so you have like a 25 app limit per region. And so you get to pick fun regions for doing demos. But while this is deploying, anybody have any questions for me? Anything that I can explain more or anything like that?
I noticed on the data bits, I think on the previous page, it said Appsync and Dynamodb. So are those resources being kind of created in the background now that that deploy's happening?
Yes, exactly. So the technology is being used under the hood. So data store is the top layer. So data store is going to make it so that your data can be offline or online. So that's what's syncing right now to IndexedDB. And then on top of that is Appsync. So Appsync is an AWS service for managed GraphQL APIs. So if you wanted to use the GraphQL API instead of like data store directly, you could, but data store is kind of an abstraction on top of GraphQL, because we got some feedback that certain people were like not familiar with GraphQL. So that's the middle layer, I guess. And then Appsync is storing the data in DynamoDB, which is a serverless database on AWS. It is super, super scalable. There's a little bit of a learning curve if you use DynamoDB directly, though. If anybody's interested in learning a lot about DynamoDB, if you're like a little bit more advanced with AWS stuff, Alex Debris has this amazing book called the DynamoDB Book, and I'm reading it right now, and it's like amazing. So if anybody is interested, like highly recommend that.
Ali, hi.
Hey.
Hi. So once you have your data in your app and everything, are you able to add more in the actual VS Code while you're doing it, or would you preferably go onto the Amplify Admin UI instead? Which one's better?
You can do either. So you can create an application front end in order to set up your data, or you can use the admin UI, which I'll hopefully be showing here right now, but I don't know why my deployment is failing. I'm going to screenshot this to send to the engineering team. Not ideal. Now my dog is barking too, so we're just having fun right now. Well, this is not good. Oh no. Okay. Well, it's not supposed to happen. Sorry about this. Okay. So let's move to one that I have maybe deployed already. Let's see what this happens if I do this. This is really weird. It's like the demo gremlins, like something's always going to go wrong when you're live coding. Not usually that things just won't deploy though. This is unique.
Ali, is deploying stuff like this something that we can do on the free tier of AWS?
Yeah. So it'll use the free resources if you have them. And honestly, like, unless you have a lot of users on your app, it's most likely gonna fall under that free tier. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Like, again, I have all these 25 apps, usually more than that on my account at a time. And I think my billing, like AWS pays for my AWS account, thank goodness. But I think it's like 4 cents a month is like my total.
I can probably afford that.
Yeah, it's not too heavy hitting. It would scale if you had like a lot of users on it, but if you're just building something for yourself, like, I don't know. Okay, so I got it deployed. I don't know what's going on here, but I will definitely pass this feedback on to the engineers after. Post with the title, this is required, and then also the body, and then we'll have the comment, which will have text and an author, and then we need a relationship so that the post has many comments. Amazing. Okay, so now this is a deployed version of the application, and so I can deploy in this direction as well. So instead of from the sandbox, so this will provision the actual cloud resources directly instead of just doing the local version first. So now we're being deployed. Once this is deployed, then we can manage our content directly within here, which is why I was saying that I would rather use this than build the forms live. However, your data is going to be like any other like database data that you would use, where you can create forms, you can pull it into your own application. All that process is kind of the same. So this will take a minute to deploy. If anyone else has questions too, I'm very much here to answer them. And I guess I can start working on the app while everything deploys. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to import my hooks for React. And I'm going to create a use effect. I'm going to create an asynchronous function within the use effect that will pull my data. And I need to put the array in my use effect so that I don't get all sorts of memory leaks. And then I'll also do const posts set posts equals use state, and I'll put an empty array in there by default. And then in here, I'll do like, I'll wait for that. Okay, so I get this log that it's deploying, it's in progress. And so this normally does take a little bit to get all this deployed because it is provisioning all these resources under the hood. So it's pretty much just like creating AWS resources for you instead of you having to do it manually.
So those AWS resources that are created, are those viewable in the console afterwards? So, and would there ever be any need to look at those in the console, or is that sort of, not really something to worry about?
That is a great question. So they are viewable. So if I go to like my DynamoDB here in the console, you can see all my tables here. And so a lot of these are created by Amplify. So let's see, like this one's for a book app that I have or something along those lines. And so it has all my books right here. Okay, it has like the Jessica Simpson book or something like that. It's super funny that that's what it is. But it has all my fields and all my data here. So if you ever wanted to use the console directly for the resource, you could. The only time that I personally use the services resources is for Lambda logs. So you can do Amplify add function in order to add a serverless function to your application and this is a little bit more of an advanced use case normally. So we won't do this today or anything like that, but that's where I use the normal AWS console the most is if I'm debugging a Lambda function within Amplify. But otherwise the services are there. It's in the console for that service, but I personally don't end up using it that often just because I normally think that the Amplify stuff is a little bit more curated for a developer like me. But I guess it's like personal preference. If you had a lot of DynamoDB experience or something like that and wanted to use this, you totally could.
Cool. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's see. So now it looks like we are deployed. So that's exciting. So there is this content tab. And this is going to allow me to create blogs and comment or blog posts and comments directly from this console here, which makes it so that you can still create a form in your app, but you can also just use this to create posts instead of creating that form up front. So this is really, really cool. Our engineering team just launched this. I think it went official yesterday. So this is like brand new, but you can automatically generate seed data. So I can put like, I want 5 rows of data. I can actually add constraints to that data too. So I can make it so that my fields had to be a certain length or something along those lines. And so this is really helpful for test data for a new application. So I can click generate data and it just created a bunch of blog posts for me. They're not necessarily very sensical. They're a bunch of like Latin placeholders, but I mean, it's easier than creating a bunch of blog posts. I'll say that. So then I'll also auto generate some comments. Let's see, do these? No, let's see. I'll have to link some comments. So I can link to the comments from my blog posts as well. So I can say that these 2 comments belong to this blog post, save that. And then I could also create an actual blog post in here too. So hello world, and then the body, you can actually edit this in Markdown too. So if you want to have like a rich text editor, you can do that. So hello. I'll go ahead and save this. And then there is additional information for setup. So I showed how the AWS exports was empty. So this will actually populate that AWS exports with links to the resources in the cloud. 2. And I'll use Visual Studio Code, JavaScript, and React. Source build, npm run build. So those are just the options for my application. And so I'm filling it in with the defaults, which are auto-populated from create React app. So create React app, you run npm run build in order to build your app, npm run start to start a server for it. And close this out too. Then open up my code. And so what I'm going to do on this page here is create a query to pull down all of my posts. So again, this is like copy and paste driven development where I can go to this here and it allows me to select one of my models, and then it'll also give me all the different queries I would need for it. So if I do create, it'll show me the query for creating a new blog post in my code, or the query to select all of them. So I'm gonna paste that in, and then my imports as well. And so I am importing that post model from the TypeScript file that I was showing you all a little bit earlier. And then I'm also pulling in data store so that I can do data store.query for all the posts. So right now, this is going to query data store for all those posts and then just console log them. So I'm going to make it so that instead it's running the set posts on the models. So I'll go ahead and fire up my React server. I always have too many servers on. I should like really restart my computer more, I think is what I need to do. Okay, and it's a blank web page because I didn't add anything to the web page, but I was going to use the React application tab. Wait. React Dev Tools not showing up? We're having all just fun issues today. Like React Dev Tools are not loaded. Oh, there they are. They popped up. Okay, so now I'm in the components tab of the React Dev Tools, and you can see that in my app component, I have all those blog posts that I created in the admin UI. So I'm using them in my app. So got these like random Latin blog posts and my hello one. So all those got pulled in, and I can like loop through them and display them in my app too. So I'm like opening all the wrong things. I will do posts. No, this is not what I wanted. Okay. Posts.map post and do like each one with the post.title. And I'll add in a key right there. And you can see that now all of my blog posts are showing up on the page. And if you want to make this real time, you can add a subscription in as well. Anybody interested in that? I mean, I don't think we need like a real-time blog in actuality, but I can just show how that works. So what I will do is data store .subscribe. This is the one. Okay, it's .observe. Post. And then .subscribe. So what I'm doing is I am watching the post model and I'll subscribe to any changes in it. So anytime that one of my posts changes, it's going to console log the post for now. And I'm also going to return like a cleanup for this so that if I move from the page, I don't have memory issues. So return subscription dot unsubscribe. Okay. So now I'm going to open this up and I'm going to open up my app here. So I'll open my console and I will I'll change this hello world formatting. So instead of doing this, I'll do hi, hi, hi. I'll make one of them bold. Save that post. And as soon as I clicked save, it console logged that changed item. So it changed from what it had before to the bolded version of it. So I could write some logic that would add this manipulated one to the array, but I'm going to kind of like cheat a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to repull this pull data function so that every time I have a change in my data, I'm going to pull this function that queries for all of my posts and then sets my state with that data. So what I will do is pull data. And now on this tab, what I will do is maybe I'll change one of the titles. So I'll change hello world to hi, 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 and save post. And hypothetically, this should be changing. Okay, I did get this change here, but it's not going live on the page. Probably put a bug in my code. Oh, wait, it's console logging instead of, wait, okay, let's see. Da, 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 da. Sometimes all you need is refresh, and I hope that's what's going on. Well, hypothetically, it should be changing on the page. I'm not sure what I'm doing to make it not change, but you can subscribe to changes in the data like a WebSocket. Okay. So what else? Oh, the other really cool feature is that you can add authentication to your app. So if I go back to this console, you can see that there is authentication. So I'll click on this. And so you can have email login. That's probably the most basic one. And then you could add like phone number or Facebook or Amazon or Google or phone number, whichever one that you want. I'll just keep email for there. You can also make it so that there's multi-factor authentication enforced too, or optional. So I'll ignore that for now, but that is a thing that you can implement. You can also get more information from your user too. So if you wanted to get everybody's phone number or their name or their address or anything like that, you can make that required. And you can also have password settings too. So I'm going to make this so that it, it has to be at least 6. And I'm going to make it so that you don't need all these like uppercase, lowercase numbers, symbols. In a production application, you probably would, but in a demo, it makes it so that I don't have to think of a super complicated password for myself while talking to you all. So then you can also have like forgot password through SMS, text message, or email. So I'll save and deploy this and confirm that deployment. This will take a minute again to deploy that. So it's using Amazon Cognito for authentication, which is another AWS service. I think it's most commonly used in tandem with Amplify. So if you have used Amplify before, you might have seen it. The other thing is with the admin UI is that you can give people without AWS accounts access to it. So you only need one AWS account for everybody working on the project. So if you go to this admin UI management, you can invite users via email. So this is like my blog email. I can invite users via this email and then give them different access. So if I want to give them full access, that'll make it so that they can change like the schema and add authentication and do all those types of things. But if you had maybe like a non-technical user, like somebody who just wanted to update content, you can give them manage only access, and this will allow them to update data using that admin console, but they won't be able to like change the schema or anything along those lines. So it's up to you what you give access to, and then they can access this again without having their own AWS account. Anybody have any questions while this is deploying?
So I've been using different technologies in my work. What is Amplify closest with in other, other products like, I don't know, Azure, the one that I'm using at work.
Oh yeah,
Unfortunately.
yeah. No, so I don't know too much about the Azure ecosystem, but I think the closest one would probably be like Firebase in the web community in general. I know a lot of, especially like mobile developers are really high on using Firebase, and they have a lot of similar services, and it's kind of like this abstraction as well that helps mobile developers be more powerful. Hasura is also one that I really enjoy. It's a managed GraphQL service as well. It's a fun one. So those are the two most similar that I've used, but I know that there's this category of tools called like backend as a service. And so that this kind of falls under that. I think we're like trying to avoid that because it might have like a bad reputation with some people, but that's kind of what it is. It's like a backend tool that gives you all this without you having to write all of it yourself. Still deploying. So much fun. This is like everybody's workday as a developer anyways, like, checking Twitter while things are deploying. Okay, we're good to go. So there's also another admin console for the users. So if you want to create a user for like me, and then you can also manage those users, add them to groups. So if you wanted to create like a admin group, for example, you can create an admin group. And then we could add me to the admin group. And then you can also add authorization rules. I won't do this because it's going to require a whole new deploy. Again, I don't want to put you all through that. But what you can do is now I can click on the post, and instead of anyone being able to create, read, update, and delete the post, I can add user pool. And then what you could do is make it so that only the owners of a blog post could change the title on the body. So like the author of it would be the only person able to update it or something along those lines. Or you could make it so that only admins can create, update, and delete a blog post, but anybody could read it. So any signed in user can read a blog post, but only signed in people or only admins could like create, read, update, and delete, for example. So I don't know, this is another thing that takes a while to implement as a developer. So it's kind of nice that these rules are built in to an extent. So the last thing that I'll show you is how to add in authentication to your application. So I will install the Amplify React libraries. Install them with npm. And so we have different UI libraries for different technologies. So if you want to use like web components, you can install the UI components for web components or Vue or Angular or React Native or Swift or whatever. So I installed the ones for React. And what I will do is so I'll import with authenticator from this UI React library. And then this is a higher order React component. So what I'll do is I will wrap my app in this. And what it's going to do is any component that you wrap in this with authenticator, it's going to make it so that the person has to sign in before they can view that component. So if I go to my app, so I think it's like localhost 3002, it's going to now make me sign in before I can see all the blog posts. So I created this user within the Amplify console, but you could also create a new account here instead. And so I'll sign in. Oh, you know what I'll need to do is I'll need to rerun the Amplify pull command. So I changed something in production, but didn't pull it down into, or didn't change it in production. I changed it in the cloud. And so I needed to pull it down into my local environment. So let's see. Okay, maybe it's going to make me. Nope. Okay. Interesting. Restarting my React server. Just having all the demo gremlins today. Okay, that was it. I just needed to restart my React server. Classic. There's nothing wrong in my code. Cool. So now you can see my blog posts again now that I'm signed in. Cool. So that's what I had to talk about today, but I'll go back to my slides real quick. We kind of did all of this. If you want to learn more about this, docs.amplify.aws is our documentation site. I have a lot of tutorials on my blogs and stuff as well. I'm A Spittel everywhere online. And the other thing is that we are hiring. So if you like this tool, if you have fun working on it, I am personally hiring 3 developer advocates. So people who do kind of my job of speaking and writing and talking to product people about what people want to see in the app. So I am hiring, but then also the engineering teams are hiring. We're hiring engineering managers. We're hiring product people. So if you're interested in any of those roles, feel free to shoot me a message or apply through Amazon.jobs. Thanks.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Big round of applause for that. That was such an awesome talk. Thank you very much.
Thanks for all coming out.
Is there any questions or anything from anybody? Feel free to unmute yourselves, or you can stick them in the chat. Or
I was wondering, on a day-to-day basis, how would you use this tool for someone like me that I'm just in my second year of development at work and I want to do something else than Azure?
No, that's awesome. I personally use it for a lot of applications where I would normally use something like Django or Ruby on Rails for my backend, or like even Express.js, where I can kind of use this and it's deployed for me. I've got this admin console and I can keep provisioning resources. It's directly on AWS. So I think it's a great tool for playing around there for personal projects if you are doing this outside of your work. But then again, like some pretty decent sized startups and other companies are using this in production as well. So it's not like a toy. You don't have to move away from it as you scale or anything like this. Like underneath the hood, it's using the same AWS resources that any other app is using. So it does kind of scale with the company. But I'm in a similar position where a lot of my job is like creating side projects to show. And I think it's a fun tool for that.
does Amplify provide a way to kind of inspect logs for individual services, or would you have to go into the management console and go into that individual service for that?
Yeah, so kind of both. So when you are deploying and things like that, there'll be logs about that deploy in the command line interface if you're using that, but then you can also go into the individual services and see the logs for that. I use that a lot, especially when I'm trying to do Lambda functions, because that can be get a little bit more complex there.
Sure. Yeah, I guess like from my point of view, I'm a tester, so kind of I spend a lot of time looking at logs and analytics stuff and things.
Oh,
all that
that's
good
super
stuff.
cool.
Cool. Any more questions?
Yeah, I was just wondering this for a sort of a production application. So you have things like unit tests alongside the React code that you want to run. Does Amplify kind of provide a way to do that, or would you typically do that in some kind of a separate pipeline first before doing the deploy to Amplify?
Yeah, so you can set up your own pipeline link with the technologies that you want to use. So we're not opinionated on that. That's not like, you have to use X or Y testing framework in order to do this. We also have front end hosting, and there's like CI/CD for that as well. I guess I could have shown that in this demo, but that's another piece of this as well. And there's also automatic ability to have multiple environments too. So normally you'd have like testing, development, and then production or something along those lines, like maybe even more than that. And there's automatic support for that. And you can just kind of switch between your different environments.
Cool. Oh, super cool. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. I will just steal the screen back off you then, if that's okay.
Cool.
That one there. Brill. So, yeah, absolutely massive thanks for that. That honestly, that was just an awesome talk. We really do appreciate you giving up your time, and everybody else on the call as well, giving up your time to join our meetup there this month. If you had any kind of further questions or anything, or any feedback you wanted to give, as I kind of mentioned earlier, any tech, we're all over kind of social media, or you can get in touch with Ali as well. Yeah, just go to any.technology and you can contact any one of us, and yeah, we can sort you out. Next month, so our next meetup is the 13th of May. And we're going to be talking about Agile that month. So we have John McNestry speaking then. For those of you who kind of don't know him, so he is an Agile coach and runs a tech meetup called Agile Northeast. I guess if you're kind of around the northeast of England, you might have heard his name. But yeah, definitely want to come along too. So I guess all there's left to say is just a big thanks to Ali and big thanks to everybody who is on the call. And yeah, we hope to see you next month. Thank you all.